You've probably heard about greenwashing when it comes to household appliances and the things that we use in our home, but have you actually heard about greenwashing when it comes to construction and building materials? Because it's a thing and it's much harder to spot than the household cleaner aisle. So greenwashing is something I want you to avoid, and I'm going to give you the tools to do that. But first, I'm Christine. I'm a licensed general contractor here in Southern California and construction consultant on new build and renovation projects nationwide. So we're going to talk a lot about greenwashing, but first, what is the term? So if you've never heard of greenwashing, think of it as if you were to see a label in an aisle that had a nice little green leaf in it, but then the backside, once you turned it over, was in fact had some chemicals that were just plant derivatives. That is greenwashing, where you as the consumer are perceived a product to be natural and organic and non-harmful, but in fact it just had creative labeling and alternative names for toxic products. So greenwashing is really more on the marketing side. Like if something is marketed to you as a consumer to be healthy and natural when it's not actually all that better than the toxic counterparts. So how does this show up in the building and construction industry? It has to do with the building materials. And my hot take, and maybe not a popular one, is that you can't save the planet if you're sick. So when I see things about recycled, renewable, energy efficient, all of the things to help in the name of global warming and help our planet, I'm all for that. But if the trade-off is that you are becoming sick because of it, that's a hard one for me to get behind. So what would be an example of this? Because I stand pretty firmly on, I'll save the planet when you're healthy. I'll save the planet when we stop having mold within 50% of our homes. That's when I will prioritize above everything else. Then we can start saving the planet and using recycled materials. But an example of how this might show up, where a recycled material that would be good for the planet, but not good for the occupant. One example of this would be when it comes to recycled gym flooring. Maybe not in everyone's home, but they are taking tires that would otherwise end up in a landfill. They are taking tires, recycling them, making them into gym flooring, like gym mats, gym flooring, and then installing them. So this is most commonly used in commercial gyms, but sometimes in home gyms as well. That's not a healthy material for you as an occupant. It's diverting tires from landfills, but it's impacting you. Another way this shows up is on artificial or synthetic turf. So if you've ever walked on a synthetic turf field and had these little black crumbs, almost look like black sand, that is a filler for the turf, and it's recycled tires. Well, now if you go on the internet, you can see that there's a lot of these turf fields that children and athletes were playing on that are getting ripped up because of health implications, and they're putting natural grass back in. So although, yes, it is doing good things for recycled material, it's seemingly harmful to humans, and that's something that's really hard to get behind. So in the name of building a healthy home, if you were to boil it down to one phrase, I would say building a healthy home prioritizes occupant health. That's where we have to start. So another example of how recycled and renewable materials in my lens are greenwashing would be when it's recycled insulation products. So a very common one is cellulose. Cellulose is a paper-based product. So cellulose insulation is most commonly going to be a recycled paper product. Think of it as like a recycled newspaper product. Okay, that could be great, but what do they do with the recycled paper product to make it not flammable and resistant to pests and resistant to moisture? Well, in some cases, they are spraying it with a flame retardant and they are using pesticides In some other instances, they're using boric acid, which is, it's not really a toxic product at all. But when you take something in the name of it being green and recycled, like a recycled cellulose product, and you spray it with a flame retardant and a pesticide, and then you stick it in the walls of the home that you're living in, that is not going to prioritize occupant health. That's something I would consider greenwashing if it's a cellulose product with those flame retardants. Now, there's cellulose products that use boric acid as a natural pest and flame retardant. Those are a bit better, but it's still a recycled product. So the problem with recycled products is we don't know the true origin of it. So let's use the gym flooring example again. Since I'm not a fan of using recycled tires within our homes, what would I use instead? I would use a natural rubber from a rubber tree. They have natural rubber gym mats. That's one option. I would also consider using a cork for a gym floor as well. That's another option. Those are things that are not necessarily super impactful to the planet, but you're moving the needle when it comes to indoor air quality and occupant. Same thing when it comes to insulation. What would I use instead of a cellulose that is sprayed with a flame retardant? I would use either like a sheep's wool, that's natural. I would consider using a mineral wool that doesn't have added formaldehyde or flame retardants to it, because mineral wool is naturally flame resistant. I'm sure there's a better term for that, but it's spun lava rock, so it's not going to be an ignition product. So there are alternatives where you don't have to completely go in the other direction, but I just want you to be able to spot when there's things that are greenwashing when they're not actually going to be meaningful for improving your health in your home. So we talked about recycled tires, recycled cellulose. The one that just really peeves me the most, and it came up just this past week, was a product that is somehow making waves on the market. I think it is the greenwashing of all greenwashing, and it has to do with spray foam insulation. So this came up on a project during the planning stage recently when the architect is really pushing for spray foam, and I am sharing with them there is a better strategy for spray foam. We're in the planning stage, so we have time to strategize. And so their comment was, okay, well, here's the spray foam that we typically use, just your standard closed cell spray foam. And they came back and said, okay, well, because you don't like the spray foam because of the health concerns, there were other reasons, they came back with a soy-based spray foam and said, okay, this is going to be much better. Not the case. So the greenwashing varieties of spray foam are typically a soy-based or a sugar-based, the sucrose or a sugar-based. And these I see are being presented as healthy alternatives to spray foam. They're not. Let me give you a quick breakdown. Spray foam insulation, this is on-site chemistry. So they are showing up with equipment, and there is an A and a B. The A is where a lot of the VOCs, formaldehyde, this is the isocyanate. This is the component of spray foam that makes it the spray foam. B, the B part of the mix, is going to be the added flame retardants. There's a blowing agent in there. There's catalyst in there. This is the part that needs to be mixed together, and that's where the spray foam gets sprayed on site. When you see these varieties of soy-based and green, and there's the sugar-based, that's only talking about the B part of the mix, and it's typically a small percentage of the B part of the mix. So when you see things, even I saw a claim recently of a 90% sugarcane spray foam. You should see their website. It's all green everywhere. But it's only talking about the B part of the mix. It's still got the isocyanates in it. It still has this A mix. And so when you're mixing it together, yes, it still is going to have VOCs and off gas, and there's other concerns with spray foam like trapped moisture and voids and pockets. But The greenwashing of the spray foam industry has somehow come up with soy and sugarcane as the solution, but it's not telling the whole story. That's what really makes me just irritated about it, is give the full story. Like, it's not completely inert. It is not a non-toxic product, even though it has some sugarcane base to it. It's still got this A and this B. So if you are going to be going down the road of spray foam in your home, or you are mid-construction and you already have spray foam on your plans, I would do a bit more digging into the type of spray foam. Is it truly a lesser toxic alternative? And what are you actually getting with this A and this B? Because if you go to the spray foam website, in most cases, you can find a safety data sheet, like an SDS sheet, for the A and the B. They're usually separate safety data sheets. So check that out if you are in planning to do spray foam within your home. So the recycled products, the sugarcane or soy-based products for spray foam is another one where I see greenwashing come up quite a bit. But I want to pivot just a little bit into when you're going down the path of wanting to do non-toxic products. I think that's wonderful, as long as it's not compromising the performance of the product as well. And this often shows up in like finished materials as well. Here's a few examples of things that I push back on a bit in the name of, not toxicity isn't a black or white thing. There's percentages and there's amounts. And the trade-off that you should really consider is the performance and the maintenance. So an example of this shows up in sealant and caulking. These are the sealant that goes around your bathtub or your shower, or around the toilet, the base of the toilet where it's connected and installed, where the floor and the toilet meet. These are things that my take is they move the needle so slightly in the name of indoor air quality. Again, going back to like by volume, they're very small amounts of the overall volume of your home. And when you go to a zero VOC, zero formaldehyde, non-toxic caulking or sealant, it's important to also understand what is the performance, what is the maintenance of that. So a non-toxic sealant around your tub could be great, but it may not also be high performing. It may be something that you need to reapply, like remove and reapply every year. Is that something that you are willing to do? If so, I think it's wonderful. I just think that the full story is not being told if the homeowner is then, not so thrilled that they're having to reseal their tile or reapply caulking every year. So align the performance and the maintenance of the products that you're selecting as well. The way that this also shows up is on cabinetry, just like what's behind me, and finish work. This is a big one that I see talked about with going in the direction of completely non-toxic. So finished carpentry, like if you're doing custom millwork, custom cabinets, custom vanities, they're going to need to have a finish applied to them. And there's two lanes. There's stain grade and there's paint grade. So stain grade, as you might imagine, is a wood grain that's going to receive a stain or a clear coat, and the finish of it is going to be like the natural wood grain of that product. That's one thing. The other materials would be, again, like what's behind me. If you're listening on the audio, it's a painted built-in bookcase in my office behind me. And it is a paint grade finished product. And so the finished carpenter builds it, and then the finisher comes in and will finish it. Well, what is typically used is a very durable, not non-toxic product that is, sometimes it's water-based, sometimes it's a catalyzed product, and that's not non-toxic. So what's the trade-off? Well, you could do a non-toxic paint and sealant and finish, but the trade-off can be that it chips easier. that it's not as hard as a surface. So if you've ever written with a piece of paper on top of a desk and you see like the indents and the pen markings in the top of that cabinet, that's because it's not a hard, like catalyzed finish. So that can happen with non-toxic cabinetry finishes as well. There is no right or wrong answer. It is really, I just want you to be informed when you're making decisions, going down the lane of everything must be non-toxic, zero VOC, zero formaldehyde. I just want there to be better information shared with you about what the maintenance of that looks like, because you may not enjoy what the cabinetry would look like in 3 years or 5 years or maybe sooner. I have a built-in cabinet in my children's playroom in their schoolroom. On that cabinetry, it's again another like custom cabinetry built in. It's paint grade. I chose white. Maybe that was a bad choice, but it's a white built-in cabinetry. Day one, when that thing was installed, I went and had a piece of plexiglass, like just a thin 1/4-inch piece of plexiglass, cut for the top of that built-in desk area, because I knew there was going to be all kinds of cuts, nicks, pens, colored pencils, markers, Sharpies on top of that cabinet. So I wanted to protect it. So there's ways that you can get what you are wanting out of the, like, keeping your home healthy, not introducing toxins, but please understand the maintenance and the performance of materials as well. And when we have to find this balance, I think one of the important things to do is to consider all options. So it's not usually, like I said, it's not usually a black or white. When we're working with clients and they say, oh no, like my kids are gonna come through this like a tornado. We have parties, we have guests over. I do not want to have to refinish my cabinetry at any point. Well, you then might need to go to the typical conventional process of painting your finished carpentry. Well, what could we do? We could consider having it fabricated sooner and can consider having it off gas within the carpenter's shop. That's something we commonly do if that's the direction that we're given by the homeowner, is that's what they're wanting. So just know that it's not just black or white. And please understand the maintenance. Talk to the finished carpenter, talk to the manufacturer of the paint or the stain that you're considering, because here's the other element that I don't see anyone else really talking about. The fact that if you have a finished carpenter on your project and maybe them or someone else is painting or staining it, and you are introducing a new product that they've never used before for painting or staining, and there's a problem with it in 6 months, in a year, or sooner, and you go back to them and say, hey, this is a warranty issue. Like the cabinetry is chipping and the paint's not holding up. They're likely going to come back to you and say, I used what you told me to use. I had no idea that it wouldn't hold up like that. So just be careful in those conversations when you're wanting to completely swap or deviate from what a subcontractor might be familiar with, and reach out to the manufacturer to see what their warranty is and what their response is regarding like wear and tear on things like that. So that was a deep dive into more of the nuances of paint grade and stain grade cabinetry finishes. There is no particular non-toxic brand that I'm completely married to. We've tried many of them. A lot of them are not as robust and durable as I would like. That is the truth about it. So my preference is we typically off-gas cabinetry before it ever goes into the home. And when using some of the more conventional materials, some of them do off-gas relatively like fast. And it has not been a problem so far, even with some of our SIRS clients. And so it's something that I think should be navigated. Samples are a great tool. That's something that we definitely do, is have a finished piece of finished carpentry that's painted and given to the client so they can touch it, smell it, breathe it, like see if it's really affecting them. So that's something to consider as well. But greenwashing in the building industry is a very big deal. It's also very costly. You talk about conventional construction, that's costly. You want to then implement non-toxic materials throughout, even when it comes to like furniture, that's definitely going to add to the budget. And so you want to make sure when you're paying for these premium products that you're actually getting what you want out of it and not ending up with like a maintenance headache. And certainly don't want to have this greenwashing effect where materials are more expensive but not actually moving the needle in the name of occupant health. So I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, please subscribe below. We put new episodes out every week to help inform you and guide you along the way of renovating or building your healthy home. We have links below to check out our directory, even apply for consulting if you do need support in your project. And I will see you on the next episode.